What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I trust that you are rather frustrated. This is the postgame. The Dallas Cowboys lost to the Baltimore Ravens 28-25, the final score, but it was not as close as that would have you believe. I don't know if maybe you missed it. Obviously, you check in here on the postgame to get caught up, hear my opinions. If you want my opinions on anything, on everything, the Cowboys, food, life, movies, architecture, you never know. You can hit me up on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Email is rj.ochoa@sbnation.com if that is more your thing. Also, please make sure to subscribe here to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. It's the only place where you can hear or watch my analysis on the Cowboys, obviously. We are on the march, on the way to 30,000 subscribers. We're close to 23, hoping to get there this week. It is a busy one with the Cowboys now playing on Thursday Night Football against the New York Giants. So we're going to have a lot of stuff coming out here on the channel. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Also, on the subject of not missing anything, make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com 24/7, 365 for the latest and greatest in the world of Dallas Cowboys news and analysis from myself and the rest of our talented staff. Sunday Night Football is getting ready to start in front of me, behind you, which is why you're seeing all the flashes on my screen. Not because I'm just in the middle of dealing with the aftermath of what we just witnessed. As an opening monologue of sorts, I'll kind of let you in on my world and how I do my job. You know, you do some things ahead of time, right? You've got some things prepped. I've got some templates for things, and I'm starting to write some things. And especially in a game like this, where, you know, it's 28-6 and you just kind of know the way this is going to end. So I'd had a little bit of a jump on some things, right? And I've done this before in my career. And, you know, sometimes you have to scrap it, right? Sometimes the watermelon kick game happens and you have to completely and totally throw everything out and completely and totally start over. That's just life. That's sports. This was the worst kind of case scenario where you have to throw everything out, because I'd gone on this diatribe of sorts, just kind of lambasting the Cowboys for what we saw and what we didn't see, right? Because there are a lot of things we saw and didn't see that upset us. And so I you know, just kind of gone on and on and on, just kind of offering my opinions. And I told all of you, and I mentioned it in our interview with Kyle Barber this past week, that I picked against the Cowboys. I picked the Ravens, and it was the first time that I picked against them in a very long time. And I'm sorry that was the case, but I have to pick with my head. And so I was kind of dealing with all that. And then the comeback happens, and you're thinking, like, there's just no way they're going to pull this off. And then the second touchdown happens, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have such a toxic relationship with this team that they have roped me into believing that this is actually possible. Now I am emotionally invested in this happening, only for it to not happen. It is so what I say by, you know, it being the worst case scenario, I had to scrap everything because all my stuff was about it being 28-6. And then I had to rewrite it and redo everything, redo all the graphics, and get ready for you to shoot this video. And they didn't even win, right? Like the best case scenario is, you know, you scrap everything and you do all the work again, but who cares, because they won. This was the worst possible case scenario, and then I had to redo everything, and the Cowboys still lost. And if you somehow did miss the game, like I said, 28-25 is way too flattering. This was a game where the Cowboys were not close. This is a game where the Cowboys were not competitive. If you want to give them a few flowers because they fought and they came back, I'll allow that. I think that's mildly fair. But for the most part, this was a team that quit. And I thought that the way that the game unfolded, my whole sequence involved with that, was really emblematic. And I mentioned this in my post-game article. I write the recap for the games at bloggingtheboys.com. And this was kind of what I led with. It felt like the offseason, and that the Cowboys did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. Free agency, we're good. You know, contract extensions for our superstars, we're good. We like our guys. We're all in. Pick whichever cliche or whichever Jerry Jonesism you want. It felt like they did that for the first 3 quarters and change of this game. And then, like the Cowboys, once they got to training camp and they were like, I'm scared, bro, you know what? We got to kind of fix this stuff a little bit. And they started to retool the roster, and they did some things that we liked. And then, hey, stuff with CeeDee Lamb's heating up. That happened. Stuff with Dak Prescott's heating up. And that happens on the day the season begins. Kind of like that whole process where the Cowboys got up off the couch a little bit too late in the game. That happened here. The Cowboys got up off the couch. We're like, it's 28-6. Maybe we should start taking this seriously, start attacking the middle of the field. And look what happened. You had some successes. And I'm not trying to say that the Cowboys weren't trying or anything like that. Please don't, be, that way about what I'm saying, but it felt like that. And they're 1-2 now. It's the first time since 2020, Mike McCarthy's first season with the Cowboys, obviously, that they are 1-2 on the season. It's only the 13th time overall as a franchise that the the Cowboys are 1-2. In case you're curious, they have made the playoffs only 4 of the previous 12 times in which this was the case, although one of those times was the 2018 season. So Dak Prescott and Zeke Elliott, if you want to mention him, were a part of a team that did that. But that team was broken at the very beginning, much like this one. That was the infamous wide receiver by committee approach that the Cowboys had, and they had to trade for Amari Cooper, who had 2 touchdowns, by the way, for the Cleveland Browns in a losing effort to the aforementioned New York Giants. And he ultimately helped them right the ship. The Cowboys were 3-5 when they traded for, actually, I think they were 3-4 when they traded for him, and then lost that first game on Monday Night Football to the Tennessee Titans to fall to 3-5, but you get the point. And so as we take a look at what happened here, it was really just a masterclass of a disaster. I mean, 28-25. And I want you to see, I'm going to zoom in over here on Derrick Henry, because the Cowboys were too good for Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry did not get the Cowboys interested this offseason. There was the story about how he was interested in playing for them. They reportedly didn't even call him. 25 carries for $151, 2 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry for Derrick Henry against the Dallas Cowboys, with that 29-yard run as the long one on the day. Let's look at the Cowboys side of things from a rushing perspective. Jerry Jones said this week, and look, if you're taking what Jerry Jones says seriously in 2024, I can't help you. You can't take what he says literally. But that being said, he mentioned that he liked what the Cowboys are doing from a rushing perspective. And this game was lost in many ways, not just in the Cowboys' inability to run the ball, but Rico Dowdle, 8 carries for 32 yards. Dak Prescott had 2 carries himself. I don't really count those. Zeke Elliott, 3 carries, 6 yards, and he was the only serious addition the Cowboys made. In fact, I'll reword that, say he was the only external addition, because Rico Dowdle was brought back, but obviously was a part of the team last year. Zeke Elliott was the only external talent added to the Cowboys roster from a running back perspective this entire offseason, and in this critical game, 3 carries, 6 yards, had a drop on an important third down, ran the wrong route, it seemed like. Obviously, we have to watch the game back and things like that. But this was just, again, a masterclass of a disaster. Dak Prescott, the rally in the fourth quarter really adds to this. I wouldn't quite call those empty calories because they did matter, but 28 for 51 attempts. You cannot be throwing the ball that many times. That is not sustainable. Granted, this team did fall down 28-6, 379 to 2 touchdowns. Cool. Jake Ferguson led the team in targets, 11, 6 receptions, 95 yards in his return. CeeDee Lamb, there are going to be some takes about CeeDee Lamb this week, and what appeared to be a level of discontent on the sideline as the game got critical, as the game got close. And I have yet to see a quote from CeeDee. I look over here as my external monitor. I promise I'm not ignoring you. I have yet to see a quote from CeeDee, but it looked like, and I want to be very clear about that, I don't know what CeeDee was thinking in his head, but it looked like he was rather morose about what was happening to the Cowboys, and you cannot be that way ever, especially when you're the $34 million per year man. Now people expect things from you because of the contract and all this stuff, especially when you're the number 1 wide receiver. Like, we don't have to, debate that, right? We all understand that if CeeDee truly was pouting, that's a very heavy word, and we do not know if that's what he was doing, but if it was, that's not a good thing. That cannot happen. But look at the people that the Cowboys are working with here. I mean, one of the biggest plays, one of the most explosive plays in this game came from Hunter Lipke. And I'm not saying that as a knock against Hunter Lipke, but it is representative and emblematic in and of itself of the lack of playmakers the Cowboys have going on. Again, it does call to mind that 2018 season when the Cowboys had, it was a disaster, if you remember that. It was only 6 years ago, but it feels like yesterday in some senses. Brandon Cooks had kind of a tough day. Jalen Brooks had the nice catch, obviously. Rico Dowdle, I did really think battled and fought, and I was impressed with him. And I think that our issues with the run game, if you have a problem with Rico, I don't think you're being fair to him individually. It's not Rico Dowdle's fault that he is the plan. It's the Cowboys' fault. It's the Cowboys front office's fault for the way this ultimately was all put together. So this was just, again, and if we take a look, actually, let me look here at the team stats. All right, team stats, first downs, Dallas actually, again, the rally muddies this and makes it difficult. Average gain from the Baltimore Ravens, 7.6 yards. Rushing net, 274 yards rushing, despite the fact that the Ravens had 13 penalties in this game. The Ravens are still a flawed team, but they were able to be way less fallible than the Cowboys in this game. Had 4 touchdowns, obviously missed the Justin Tucker field goal, and that kind of added all this, dominated the game. And look, the 34 minutes, 45 seconds is in and of itself representative of the Ravens dominating on the ground. This was, was it as embarrassing as the Saints loss? I don't think so, but it was frustrating. And it was, I think the frustrating thing for me comes back to, and maybe you're not in the boat that I am. Maybe you predicted the Cowboys to win this game. Maybe you thought that they were going to find a way, they were going to grind it out. Maybe especially as the kind of flair and dramatics and the theater of the final minutes and the final portion of the game were on. Maybe you bought that. Maybe you picked the Cowboys to win. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you want to be a positive fan. And I want to be a positive fan, but maybe you're an optimist. Maybe you always pick the Cowboys to win. I don't know. I'm not necessarily talking to you. I'm just kind of talking out loud. The frustrating thing is that my opinion was, and I know some of you shared this, so I'm talking on behalf of that stance. My opinion was that the Cowboys were going to show up to this game and get walked all over by the Baltimore Ravens. And while they did put up some modicum of a fight, and I will give them, again, their respective flowers for that, not Zay flowers, while they did put up a modicum of a fight, that happened, right? After Micah Parsons said that it was a measuring stick game, I forget the exact specific verbiage, after the Cowboys acted like, yeah, we're going to bounce back, don't worry, after the fact, they're 12-2, following losses under Mike McCarthy, all this stuff. Okay, you wrote that check, you said this was important, and you were down 28-6. You had absolutely no heart, no effort, none of that stuff. And I hate to question those things because, again, kind of like the CD pouting thing, we're not there. We can't say they had no heart. We can't say they had no effort. Maybe the Ravens' heart and effort was just better, and maybe they just executed better. That's the reality of sports. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. And for the most part on Sunday afternoon, the Ravens won and the Cowboys lost. And so that this became true, that our worst assumptions about them were true, was really, really just a massive indictment against them. It's fitting that we're speaking, you and I, together. I'm putting this video together. Obviously, like I said, Sunday Night Football is getting ready to start. I can't believe it's been forever since they've been in Atlanta, by the way. But that being said, today is Sunday, September 22nd. And I found out earlier this morning, I can't believe I didn't know this myself because I've got the full series DVD set in my office. It's one of the things I display rather proudly here. But Friends, as a sitcom, the greatest sitcom of all time, premiered 30 years ago today. Joey Tribbiani would have been pissed about that. He says that in season 7. Shout out Monica Geller. If you know, you know. But that being said, one of the kind of crux elements of Friends, if you're somehow unfamiliar, although I assume that you are, is that Ross and Rachel were on a break. Ross and Rachel had this intense romance and blah, blah, blah. But when that romance first gets off the ground, for those of you Friends novices like me, Ross makes a list where he's comparing the two women that he's interested in. One of them is obviously Rachel Green. The other is Kathy, the woman that he's dating at that particular moment in time. And he lists out their pros and cons. It's just a horrible idea. Rachel finds a list. I don't need to tell you the whole thing, but Rachel has a line in there that I think about often. There are some lines and quotes from movies and television that ring true relative to different circumstances or whatever we find ourselves in. She has a line where she's telling Ross, because she's so heartbroken and she's so devastated, that he made this list and he put her flaws down on paper. And she says, how would you feel if somebody who you deeply cared about made a list of your flaws, which in and of itself is a massive transgression, right? We all understand this situation, this plight that Rachel is describing. But she adds, she says, if someone made this list with your worst flaws that you know to be true yourself, right? The level of insecurity that this tugs at within Rachel is really profound. But then she adds, she says, and uses them as a reason not to be with you, right? He's highlighting these insecurities that she has, and he's using them as justification to not pick her over Kathy in that particular instance. Circling it all back to the Dallas Cowboys 30 years after the sitcom premiered, we had a list ourselves, and I don't think we're ashamed of making this list, but we had a list of our transgressions, of our issues, of our demerits with this team, with the Dallas Cowboys. And this list wasn't born after they lost 44-19 to the New Orleans Saints. This list, thank you, Bear, I'm upset, was born back in the days of March, back in April, back during the All-In, when they didn't do anything, when all that stuff happened. Bear, I understand you're upset. We're going to make it through this. It is a wonderful time to be walking outside my house because Bear is saying hi to you. Thank you, Bear. I was on this incredible rant. I was feeling all the momentum. Anyway, we made this list. That's enough. Y'all be cool. We made this list ourselves. We had these transgressions and these issues and these demerits, and we weren't using them as reasons. Thank you, honey, for not being with the Dallas Cowboys. But the worst part, to kind of evolve the analogy, is that they wound up being true. Right? We're all fans of different teams in sports, and I guarantee you there has been a time where you have been down on one team or another, whether it was the Cowboys or a different team you root for, and that team proved you wrong. That thing that you thought about them, they actually didn't do, or they, were better than, right? We've all been there. Oh, he's not going to get a hit here. He always strikes out. Boom, home run to win the game. Oh man, he can't get it done here. He's a horrible goalkeeper. Gets the stop in the perfect moment, and the team goes on to win the Premier League title. That only happens if you root for Manchester City. But you get my point. It is a different level of depressing that all of the issues that we had about this team on Sunday morning when Manchester City was drawing against Arsenal, that we said they can't stop the run, they can't run the ball themselves, they're going to fold, they're going to get punched in the mouth. When all these things that we said wound up being true, what? That cannot be the case. I rest my case because I've got to go. This is getting way too intense. All right. The Cowboys lost. It's a short week. That's, I guess, a good thing that they can move on to the New York Giants. But this is a real wake-up call, I think, for anyone who still was holding out some hope. I can't say that this team is going to be in the playoffs. I can't say this team is going to win double-digit games. This looks like a team that did nothing over the major parts of roster construction over the calendar year and the offseason or whatever, and ignored all those elements of team building and is now paying the consequences for it. That's what they look like. And, oh, wow, that's exactly what they did. That was so in their face that if it was outside their house, my dogs would be barking at it right now. Y'all are being great guard dogs, I promise. And I apologize for the distraction. I took a risk, just like the Cowboys. I thought it would work out, and it didn't. If you believe in this team, I really appreciate your optimism and your glow for life, and I hope that you're right. And I do think, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to beat the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football, and we're going to get back a little bit, right? Because they're going to go on a little bit of a run here. The next two games for the Cowboys are the New York Giants and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know the Steelers are undefeated and all that jazz, but they are really bad offense. We can all acknowledge that. And the Cowboys are really bad offense too. But I bet you my bottom dollar that this Cowboys team on the night of October the 6th, and I'll be doing a live post-game show that night, by the way, in the Bleacher Report app. So get the app, follow me there. I'm doing a live post-game show with them over the next couple of weeks after the Giants game. You'll have the standard procedure for that one. But anyway, back to the point. They're going to get to 3-2, and they're going to get to 3-2 right before that Detroit game on October 13th. And I think the Lions are some paper tigers. I know that's a weird analogy to make because they're lions and tigers. Oh my, blah, blah, blah. But they could rip off 3 in a row. And that isn't some optimism in this team. That's just a recognition that these other teams on their schedule are kind of bad. So don't let that fool you. Don't let the fourth quarter rush after 3 quarters of inactivity lull you into thinking this team is better than they are. They might be good. They might win the division. The Eagles are bad too. There are a lot of factors at play here, but this is a team that has to do something different. If they continue to do this exact same thing, things are going to go rather poorly for them. And so I'm kind of at my wit's end with them. I think you are too. I agree with most of you that this is the highest level of apathy that has existed around the fan base in some time. And this loss is not going to help, but it is going to fade rather quickly because they play on Thursday Night Football. My name is RJ Ochoa. Their names are Bear and Honey. All right. Shout out to everyone, I guess, guys. You did it. They did a great job of being my supporting cast here. Dan Patrick has the Danettes. I have Bear and Honey. That's the way that things go sometimes. If you haven't yet, please subscribe here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. If we hit 30,000 subscribers before Thanksgiving, I'll do a live show. I'll do a live show if it's before Thanksgiving with Bear and Honey on my lap. I don't know if they'll both be on my lap, but they'll each make an appearance live on my lap at some point during the live show if we hit 30,000 subscribers before Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great Sunday. I hope you ate something delicious. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. See you next time.